Coming up, a Sicangu Lakota woman is bringing the healing power of plants to New Orleans and back home in South Dakota. Plus, an Arikara artist tells the stories of strong women through painting. Meet the owner of Pilgrim Gallery. And discover the latest exhibit at the American Museum of Natural History. Those interviews, plus headlines on the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
Amirawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. I am Aaliyah Chavez. We begin today in Lawrence, Kansas, where new details are emerging in the death of Lakota actor Cole Brings Plenty. Cole Brings Plenty disappeared just over a week ago after leaving the scene of an alleged domestic violence incident. According to the Lawrence Police Department, officers responded to reports of a female screaming for help on March 31st. Investigators later identified Brings Plenty as a suspect involved. His family was prompted to search for him after he was last seen driving on a Kansas highway. Late last week, authorities confirmed the 27-year-old's body was found in a wooded area. Brings Plenty is the nephew of Yellowstone actor Moses Brings Plenty and is best known for his role as Pete Plentyclouds in the Yellowstone prequel 1923. We will, of course, bring you more information in the actor's death investigation as we learn more. In the world of finance, a huge influx of capital is flowing into native banking institutions. Last week, the EPA announced it is putting $400 million into Native Community Development Financial Institutions, or CDFIs, for green energy projects. It's part of a $20 billion EPA effort to fight climate change. The funding is being called historic for the CDFIs, which are often the only financial institutions on tribal land.
It's historic. It really is. I don't know, if we'll ever see another influx of capital for one particular issue like climate change in my lifetime. I think that this is historic. It really is.
A Utah nonprofit is opening its phone lines for natives facing domestic and sexual violence. Restoring Ancestral Winds launched its hotline earlier this week after 4 years of planning and in midst of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This statewide service is aimed at helping the indigenous community, who make up a smaller population in Utah but have higher rates of murder and missing people. Victims of sexual and domestic violence can call the hotline at the following number on your screen. In Brazil, an indigenous person has earned a seat at the Brazilian Academy of Letters for the very first time. Ailton Kranek, a writer and environmentalist, wore an indigenous headband while receiving a sword, necklace, and diploma from his peers. He has said he comes to bring more indigenous languages.
The Brazilian Academy of Letters is Portuguese, and I'm bringing the indigenous languages. I think that makes a big difference in Brazil's history.
The Brazilian Academy of Letters is a cultural institution that first opened in 1897. Its objective is the cultivation of the Portuguese language and literature. Kranek told the Academy he wants to create a platform to make the institution's documents and books available in indigenous languages, many of which are on the verge of disappearing. We end our headlines today in the Navajo Nation, where last week over 10,000 Native-authored books were delivered for free to Navajo people. The Indian Girls Book Club delivered the books in just 5 days, kicking off its road trip in Window Rock, Arizona, and ending in Shiprock, New Mexico. The group is a nonprofit with a mission to inspire a love of literature in Native youth and uses its resources to uplift Native writers. The events held for the community included included food and performances and, of course, free books. According to Navajo poet and founder Kinsale Drake on Instagram, who publicly called out publishers about low Native representation in the industry, investing in Native youth and writers is the future. Indigenous knowledge passes from one generation to the next. That's part of why a Sicangu Lakota woman looks to make sure that we remember these old ways today. ICT Shirley Snavy has this story with Ann Whitehat and her work to promote the healing power of plants as the proprietor of Miss Ann's Maypop Herbal Shop in New Orleans.
Maypop is the common name for the passion flower. I decided to keep the name Maypop Herb Shop, and then I just added Miss Ann's because it's my Maypop now, right? And in the South, you know, there's like Miss Ann, like you would be Miss Shirley. I almost called you Miss Shirley when I got online with you, but it's a form of respect, you know, and how folks address each other down here. So now it's Miss Ann's Maypop Herb Shop, and I feel like it's important that this place is, that the herb shop is run, owned, and operated by an Indigenous woman. I also work with doctors. We have doctors who send some of their patients down here, and we have specific formulas that we work with them for their patients. So folks will come in here and get the herbal formulas that their doctors sent them down here for. There is no place like New Orleans in the whole United States. I love the culture. It's sort of a bridge between the South and Caribbean cultures and South United States, Southern. It's very unique, and I felt like I could really fit in here. And I've been here for 14 years now. I raised my kids down here, and
the culture is really woven through all sorts of indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples there, you're right, from the Caribbean. And it's really a very interesting mishmash of cultures, I'd say.
It's a gumbo of cultures. That's how we say it down here. It's a gumbo of cultures, and really New Orleans, in the indigenous language here, it's reviving the name of Bolbancha, which in Choctaw means land of many languages. This used to be a traditional sort of center of trading, right? Trading post.
Ann Whitehat was rewarded for her work with a Restoring Regenerative Agriculture grant.
It's an unrestricted grant, so I can use it I'm actually using the grant to help support my second year. I'm in a clinical herbalism program at the Vermont Center for Integrative Herbalism. And it's akin to medical school for herbalists. It's really very rigorous program. And so I get to use part of the award to support my education. You know, we're formulating equivalents to a lot of Western medicine, right? So that's where I was really first exposed to this, like, kind of apothecary and run by like brown people. You know, most of these places aren't accessible to us. If you go into our herb stores in Rapid City, they're really nice, but they're not accessible. And that's something that I'm always working towards, to make sure that our people have access, because we deserve access to good things. You know, we deserve access to the highest quality, sustainably harvested organic medicines that are really made in a respectful way and brewed for folks in a respectful way. So that's my goal, is to bring the medicines back home to South Dakota on this. So I'm started through this funding with the grant award, made my first trip back home with a project name, sort of a theme of my work, called Indigenous Herbalism on the Medicine Trail. You know, that's sort of the theme, to take my medicine on the road, meeting with Indigenous community members along the way, wherever my travels are, sharing medicine, and also learning and connecting with folks. So that's really, I'm like living my dream right now. I worked really hard to get here, so I'm really excited to be here. Because of our colonization, we lost we lost that direct connection with our herbal remedies and those pathways for sharing that, right? Because of our boarding school experiences and the fact that in American Indian Religious Freedom Act hadn't even been passed till the 1970s, right? So a lot of this knowledge was almost, it was like really underground still, and folks still had a little bit of a resistance, or not a resistance, but I would say just a little bit of, they were just not really afraid, but they just didn't really know how to work with the plants, a very, very cautious approach to plants. And so we would do these herb walks, and it was so awesome with the community members and relatives back home, and folks coming out and saying, I remember my grandma used to work with this, and she called it this, and this is how they worked with it. Or my auntie's favorite plant was this. So the knowledge is there and coming back.
It's getting warmer out, the days are getting longer, and I'm looking forward to gardening. For a beginner, what would you say I should put in my herb garden?
I would say to put in your basic culinary kitchen herbs. They are so medicinal. Grow your sage, your culinary sage, and your thyme. Thyme is an amazing kitchen medicine, okay? Grow your thyme, your oregano, your rosemary. Like those are just a few right there that have very beneficial medicinal qualities to them. Yes. Thyme especially is one that is really effective. Antibacterial, antiviral. There's a lot of medicinal qualities to them. You can use them in your teas. You can do, if you have sinus stuff, you can do sinus steams with things. And also, if you grow onions, grow your little onions. If you got a little patch to grow some onions, that's a really wonderful medicine, kitchen herb. Western herbalism is really, of course, built on the foundations of indigenous herbalism. We've just never been given proper attributes. We had these folks coming in, colonizing the lands, taking this knowledge from indigenous folks, but not once ever acknowledging where they got this knowledge from. So I'd like to reclaim that knowledge.
Our next guest uses vibrant colors and large-scale canvases to bring her Arikara ancestry to light. Jennifer White is the owner of Post-Pilgrim Gallery. Zeke Hansen has this profile from our partners at SDPB. Take a look.
I think as an artist, I have the luxury of picking the content that I want to paint, like whether it be for profit or for pleasure. I think the passion that I put on canvas, people can feel. People gravitate toward it. It speaks to them. The fun part is getting color on it. It's like looking at the clouds and finding shape. If I weren't painting every day, I honestly don't know what I'd be doing with my life. I mean, it found me. And it's nice to be able to grow and have people grow with you in your process. It's a skill, and to be able to use your brain and your heart and your hands in fluid motion. I find the color creates the subject, opposed to the other way around. I never go in with the intention of creating something or ending something. It happens. I don't want to dwell on our past as Indian people. I think the future is way brighter and way more important, but you have to acknowledge the work and the fortitude that our ancestors had to keep us here. Like, there's no reason for us to be here at all, none. I think Native artists are by far the purest form of who we are culturally. What we learn and what we teach our children is the purest form of storytelling by Native people. And women have had their children ripped away from them, their husbands taken away, gone to prison, and women are holding it down. And I think we have done that forever. But empowered Native women artists, they're like unicorns, you know? I mean, when you run into something like that, you know it hits you. It's like running into a wall. They're so forceful, they're so powerful. And to meet someone like that, especially women, you know, they're just so powerful. And you can feel like all of the energy around them is because people want them to succeed. Women are complex creatures to begin with, but there's nothing more beautiful than an empowered Native woman. Sometimes I take it for granted how special it is to be an Indian. There's something very healing about art, and when people get to relate to that part of who I am as like a mom and a wife and a woman, it feels good. The work I produce is what's like the aftermath of that incredible moment of being covered in pain and, you know, getting messy and having a good time. And I think that the art is the process of me making it. You get what's left over. It means so much more when the artist has something to say, good, bad, or otherwise. In my art, the dots represent like my children. Like we're like the stars. I have 6, so I'll be here for a long time. And like the stripes represent humility. And then the star quilt, of course, is my grandmother. She was a quilter. The women, of course, my grandma's aunts, mother, sisters, nieces, all of them. I don't paint men that often. I'm a woman, I don't need to paint men. But I do represent men in my buffalo and my horse pieces. So they are there, but not very often. I like seeing women looking grand, looking like royalty. And nothing is sacred. You can always paint over it, always. And there are no mistakes. When you're face to face with any decision you make is right. It's very cool.
The American Museum of Natural History in New York City last week opened a new exhibit of contemporary Northwest Coast Indigenous art. Stuart Huntington caught up with the guest curator, Aaliyah Boubard.
Anin Bujo Wabshkiaganin Indishnika, Saging Indunji. My name is Aaliyah Boubard, and I'm an Anishinaabe from Saging First Nation, located in Manitoba on Treaty 1 territory.
Aaliyah, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You have curated an exhibit that's at the American Museum of Natural History.
Yeah, the exhibition is called Grounded by Our Roots, and it's featuring the work of 5 contemporary Indigenous artists from the coast here, or the Northwest Coast, sorry. And it's featuring a lot of kind of 2-dimensional works, as well as a sculpture piece and some regalia from some of the most amazing artists practicing on the coast today.
How did you go about picking the folks to be in this exhibit?
All of these artists are really kind of at the point in their careers where they're flourishing and they're doing such amazing things within their own medium. So I felt that they would be, you know, kind of a perfect fit for this exhibition, and just a really good example of what contemporary art is, you know, happening here on the coast. Some of these artists I know personally, have known for quite a few years now, and I'm really excited to go through this experience with them, just because I know that this means a lot to them, and just to give them this opportunity is just really incredible.
Do you think it's important to showcase contemporary Indigenous art at this museum and elsewhere?
Absolutely, especially within the context of the Northwest Coast Hall, which is the oldest part of the museum, and it holds a lot of their ancestors' belongings and related to their nation. So I felt that including these artists, showing that they're, living artists, because a lot of people don't necessarily think of Indigenous people as here and now, to be able to show their pieces in this hall is definitely really important.
Are these artists bringing traditional themes into their contemporary work?
That's kind of the inspiration behind the title, Grounded by Our Roots, was that all of these artists, although they are contemporary artists, are all grounded through their work by their own nations, by their ancestors, by those who came before them, and have all some kind of tie to, the work of the people who came before them.
And I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about the museum where you work in Vancouver.
Yeah, so I work at the Bill Reid Gallery of Northwest Coast Art, and we are dedicated to obviously talking about Bill Reid, who was the Haida master who passed away 1998, showcasing his legacy and talking about who he was and the impact that he had here on the Northwest Coast. But we also showcase contemporary Indigenous artists of the Northwest Coast, and are actually the only gallery in North America that is dedicated to showing contemporary art of the Northwest Coast.
And do you hope that this exhibit in New York spawns other opportunities to spread Northwest Coast art around Turtle Island?
Absolutely, and not even just Northwest Coast artists, but I hope that even this inspires the museum to have more contemporary artists in their other sections of the galleries, if that's a possibility, because the work that's going on right now from Indigenous contemporary artists is really incredible and should definitely be a lot more recognized. This exhibition will be up for a year, so people will have quite a good opportunity to be able to go check it out, and I definitely encourage everybody to.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Arabe tuat tavai, which is Ute for today is a good day. Arabe is today, tuat is good, and tavai is day. Arabe tuat tavai, which is Ute for today is a good day.
Across the country, Indigenous communities are working to preserve or revitalize their native languages. At the University of Montana, community partnerships made it possible for all of Western Montana to learn Blackfeet, Salish, and Northern Cheyenne. Kathleen Dozier reports on how the partnerships boosted participation in a meaningful way.
Gane Sukapi. Gane Sukapi. All that is good. All that is good.
And so really creating a sense of identity for our people in the community, a sense of belonging.
The Montana Tribal Language Series started after the community asked for the classes through a survey.
Chin is I. Somebody say chin.
Chin.
Quetzis chin.
Language connects Native Americans to their culture, and that connection is shown to improve mental health.
With languages, that it does help behavioral health. Students are able to express themselves in the language, of their heritage culture. I feel like they feel disconnected, and I feel that leads to a lot of the stats and the social ills that we see.
Community prevention specialist Dana Kingfisher began researching with her colleagues at All Nations Health Center how to make language accessible to the community.
And over the years, we kind of tried to add language into our community events, and then really kind of dove into it probably about 7 summers ago. There was over 100 people that wanted language. And so our people that's what they're voicing in our surveys, and now it's come to fruition. So I'm really happy that we're able to provide this for our community.
The first time the All Nations Health Center offered a language series, very few people attended.
Pre-COVID, I had done a couple of kind of testing ones where I had a couple of languages, and not a lot of people showed up. So I think it had to do with getting the word out. And so it's kind of been hit and miss. But now that we have some more secure funding at All Nations, we're able to provide it consistently.
What they found was people couldn't attend because of the financial burden. The classes were expensive, and people also had travel expenses to get to the lesson site. Partnerships with the University of Montana meant all nations could offer the classes for free and provide food and gas vouchers.
We shouldn't have to pay for our language, right? It should be offered to us. Like, that's like human right to know your language. And I'm so glad that we can partner together. But it's the university that can provide the space, this big spacious place that we don't have at our office. So I'm really happy that we've come this far.
Making those changes was successful. On this night, the Blackfeet language course was packed with Native and non-Native learners of all ages. Kingfisher says other Native language providers can learn from what they went through.
And so because of that collaboration, we're able to serve our community in a really good way.
Reporting for the ICT Newscast from the homelands of the Salish and Kalispel people, I'm Kathleen Dozier with the University of Montana School of Journalism.
That is a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit us at ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.